15 years ago this month, we started this church in my apartment in Pacific Beach at the time with my wife and like 6 other people. So it's pretty crazy. Who and what the Resolve Church has become is, in my opinion, one of the absolute best churches in the city. Really proud of our church. Toward the end of my sermon last week, I mentioned that the goal when I first started this church was that it would continue long beyond me, existing for hundreds of years if Jesus tarries before he returns. And so I shared with you all last week toward the end of my sermon that our church leadership, all of our elders, I'm one pastor among a team of pastors. We all serve under our head and senior pastor, Jesus Christ, and then our deacons and many other leaders. So our elders, the pastors, are spiritually entrusted by God to care for the health of the church. They're legally responsible for it according to our bylaws. And we've been talking and praying together whether the season and the time has come for me to hand off the leadership of the church. And so as we've been looking at where our church is at and its health and its needs and where I'm personally at and where Pastor Bus is at, who I've trained and coached now for 10 years, which is pretty amazing. He started out as a pastoral intern with me 10 years ago. We've concluded that it is time. It's time for me to do what all good pastors have to do at some point in their life, and that's really to pass the baton on. And I thought I'd be maybe a little older than I am now. I'm only 41, but I've been a pastor now for 22 years, and it's kind of this halfway point through my life. And as I thought about it and all the things that God has allowed me to be a part of and to do in this first half in planting this church, and then we planted another church out of our church, Servant Church, that meets now in Barrio Logan. I feel extremely grateful, and I'm really excited about the next step, the second half of my life and the second half of the mission, and pouring my heart and mind into a new area of ministry. And so I'll share a little bit more about that next week. I'll be talking and preaching from Acts 20 in the Bible, and it's a chapter that tells the story really of one of the first churches ever to do this when the leadership baton was passed on. And so I'll be preaching a sermon titled Fulfilling My Calling, and it'll be my last sermon as pastor here, followed by a ceremony where we will then install Pastor Ryan Buss as the new lead preaching and vision pastor of the Resolve Church. Some of you I know, and sharing a little bit of that last week, and maybe some of you hearing that now for the first time, maybe that it's kind of might sound or seem kind of shocking, like, oh, that's so soon, and just to kind of let you know, and the thinking behind that, we had thought about maybe a slower transition, maybe through the end of the year or something, then we would make the change like in December, but we decided against it for a number of reasons. Studies, they show that longer and slower transitions, they tend to be unsettling and tend to frighten people more. Be like, well, what's really going on? And maybe what's happening? And church is a flock of sheep, and then sheep can tend to scatter, which is the last thing that we really want. A pastor's a shepherd whose number one goal is caring for the sheep of the flock. And our flock is actually in really, really good condition. There's no secret, like, unconfessed sin in my life. There's not some skeleton in the closet. It's not like, oh, what's the real story like happening? There's nothing like that. There's nothing we're not telling you. There's a lot of health and maturity in our leaders. There's a lot of love and service among us. We're in really good shape, and Pastor Buss is a man that I have come to love and to trust, heart and soul. And all he really wants to do is to carry us forward in the same ways that we've been hammering out as a church together in our city. The vision and the goal is the same, and it's simply time for him to lead it, which is an exciting thing. And I think it's one of the reasons why I feel the freedom and the confidence to move on, because the church is in such good shape and in good hands.